This is Corporate Murder Simulator, a game I made in 5 days whilst competing with over 6,000 other developers to make a game for one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet in only 5 days. And if that wasn't stressful enough, a massive security exploit was announced on the biggest game engine in the world, which threatened to derail the entire project. But we'll get to that a little later.
The theme is death is an opportunity.
When I heard this, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I was so excited because I had this idea for a game. A Ragdoll physics bone-breaking game where your objective is to die. I'm guessing such an ambitious bone-breaking physics game to work in only 120 hours would be a challenge like none other. I jumped straight into Unity and created Ragdoll, which, what? I tried to get the Ragdolls to walk with some active physics movement and stuff, but that would take a month, and I don't have a month, so I cheated. I added a cannon. Since the player is always ragdolled after being shot out of a cannon, I don't have to worry about any fancy movement. Now, with a player being shot out of a cannon, it would only be natural to show exactly how much damage each hit does. So I added this new damage system to each limb, and when a hit is particularly brutal, a bit of text will pop up on screen saying the amount of damage it's done. Text splashes are awesome, and so is this player, but I want to make something truly unique for the player, even if it doesn't end up in the final build. I was quite inspired by this Blender tutorial on how to make some really cool monster, and while I would say I would try and make something cool like that, I don't have those skills. But after learning some of the techniques from the video, I managed to create this guy. Look, as great as this guy is, it's terrible. It's terrible, isn't it? I suppose I can't really learn 3D modeling in only an hour, so I guess we'll have to get rid of Blob Guy. Let's tweak the damage system a bit and make it slightly more realistic. How much force to break a femur? Oh no, it's the FBI. What am I going to do? I'm so scared. Having narrowly avoided being arrested for my recent search history, we now have managed to upgrade the damage system with some realistic values. The real question is, how do they find these values out? Taking a step back for a second, why am I even bothering to look up all of these very suspicious values and creating such a brutal game? Well, aside from the sheer thrill of ragdoll physics and bone-breaking mechanics, which I love, the main objective of the game will be to get launched out of the cannon to prove how dangerous certain products are. And what could you possibly get out of that? Well, in the game, the player is one of many clones created by Happy TM in order to prove how dangerous competing brands are and to boost their own sales. So I blocked out this first level where you slide down this ramp and fall into this happy vat in order to win. But how do you know that you've received enough damage in order to win? Well, I made this bar at the top of the screen. Every time you take damage, the bar gets smaller and smaller and smaller until once it's finally disappeared off the screen entirely, you know you've taken enough damage that you can fall into that and you will successfully win the level. It's day 2, and I'm ready to add some new levels. What about a massive jump from space? Sounds painful, right? Yeah. That's kind of my point. So I did these aeroplanes, which, they're modern art inspired. Also, just like modern art, you need to avoid it, otherwise you get flung off into space. And as you continue on past the stars, you'll notice the next level that I added, which is kind of evil. You know how in the previous level I did these planes? They were kind of a nuisance, but not too big of a deal. Well, I made something 10 times worse. These are pendulums, and you don't just need to avoid them, you actually need to hit them and then get launched up into the sky and fall straight into one of these vats. And if you miss, you just die brutally for no point. You thought I was done creating levels? No! Pistons are kind of cool. But what they're not is safe, and that's why I gave you this level to beat. You need to get launched, avoid all these pistons, clip on at the very end, and then land into the vat. I did tell you they were dangerous. But not as dangerous as this new city level, where you have to crash headfirst into a building at 200 meters per second. This game really sucks, it's ugly. You should be ashamed. I guess I'll make it better then. Starting with the first level, I used all of these city 3D models that I got from a massive bundle a few years ago for only $1. What I couldn't buy for $1 though were these cool ropes and this fabric texture because they were free. That's less than $1. With these assets, I also upgraded the city level with some houses and some trees, which I have definitely never used before. Trees, you say? Well, I'll add those to the massive dropping from space level. I'm sure nothing could go wrong. Now with all these new levels, it's time to create a main menu and a level selector. But I don't want this to be some boring UI. I want it to be something truly unique that fits the theme of the game. So I'm going to make all of the UI look like an old newspaper. So I stole this image from online, which I put straight into Photoshop and began trying to recreate the old texture from it, using a bunch of different brushes, which I think turned out pretty well. Wait, but old newspapers aren't yellow? Grr. Ha! Now they are. With all this new cool stuff though, I thought we should add something even more unique and even more cool to the visuals. Is it just because there's a judging category for visuals and I want to add something that's unique but not actually very useful? Yes. You know how old newspapers look like they're printed out a bunch of tiny dots or something? Apparently that's called a halftone effect, and I thought if I made the entire game look like that, that could look pretty cool. So I started by changing the post-process colors to make everything a bit more yellow and slightly turn down the contrast. Then I added dots. So using my extensive knowledge from looking at Google Images once, I coded up a whole screen shader using Unity's shader graph to make the whole screen look like a bunch of tiny dots to make it look old. And with the new menu, I thought it was time that the game had a tutorial. So I set up scripting and recording this corporate training program for the game, which explains everything you need to do. It took a while, but here are some of the best bits. Welcome, dear employee, to your mandatory training program. In your job, you will learn how to prove the inferiority of happy competitors. You will have to get sufficiently injured before falling into a happy vat. This will prove to the world the efficacy of happy products and prove the dangers of using competing brands. Valued employee, you will use a cannon, which you must aim and shoot yourself out of. Don't worry if you miss. Happy Clone Technologies will provide a new employee to take over from your role. Just press the right mouse button to accept your fate, so that a new employee can assume all responsibilities. Always stay happy. That was pretty cool, but little did I know the entire challenge was about to get turned on its head. So, I just saw a post on the Game Jam forum talking about a massive security exploit in Unity. Now, I assumed this was a joke, but nope, I just checked it, and this is true. I need to do something now, otherwise I may be unable to finish the challenge. This was scary because every game made in the biggest game engine since 2017 was vulnerable to attack. So I needed to spend the next hour updating Unity to a new beta version that was supposedly safe from this exploit. But the challenges didn't stop there, because updating my game to that version of Unity could risk breaking my entire game, all the levels and the code on it. Luckily, it seemed to have no major issues. But now with only 2 days left, I've planned something massive, something which could break the entire game or make it better than it ever could have been. And the worst part is, there isn't a single tutorial that I could find out there on how to do this. After that event, I thought it was a good idea to do some light polishing and fixing bugs. Something almost as easy as hitting the subscribe button. So I did this transition between levels and fixed the camera so it doesn't clip through walls. And with that, I finished the day. It might be the drama of yesterday or the fact that I've been working on this game for 72 hours straight, but I'm getting pretty tired. But I don't have the time to rest, because with only 48 hours remaining, I'm taking a massive gamble and I'm going to spend hours creating a new feature which could potentially break the entire game or make it better than it ever could have been. To start the day off, I revamped the menu surroundings with some new models. They're unique in spirit. But what was actually unique was this blimp I made. You know how blimps are made of hydrogen? Well, I thought it'd be a great idea to slap a cannon onto one. Then I also added this to the massive space jump level, because blimps are famously great spaceships. Speaking of spaceships, I also added a bunch of sound effects to all of the buttons and menus in the game. But unlike a spaceship, this game only has 4 levels. Something that's also high up like a spaceship are clouds. So I went into Blender and modeled a bunch of these clouds using spheres, which I then used a remesh modifier on to smooth them all out and make them into an actual cloud looking thing. So I placed all these new clouds into a level where you have to get slammed into one cloud, bounce off, slam into another, do a backflip spin, and then straight into the vat. The second level that I added though was truly evil. This is a road factory owned by Stephen, and Happy hates Stephen, so it's your job to bounce off this massive piston, avoid these 2 mega crushing arms, then you're supposed to smash into these stairs and then fall right into the vat. And if that didn't sound difficult enough, well, you also need to make sure you take a bunch of damage, otherwise, well, what's the point? Comparing these new levels to the original ones, they're a lot harder, unless something like this happens to you. Am I meant to fix that? Hopefully not, because I swiftly moved on to something much greater, the massive gamble, something that could risk breaking the entire physics of the game, threatening all of my levels and hours of work. The worst thing though, I couldn't find a single tutorial for it online. Because I thought the character needed more personality because it's just a robot, I thought why not add some eyes just like in tabs. But because I thought it'd be a good idea to add physics to them, I had to spend the next few hours fixing these bugs. If I can't fix these bugs and get the eyes to work, the game will either stay broken forever, or I will have wasted the most important hours of the challenge making something nobody will ever see. The gamble paid off. We finally have eyes for character, delivering a whole bunch of extra personality, and even more importantly, chaos to the game. Something that changed the game even more than the eyes though, was this one tiny effect. I didn't think this effect would do all too much, but adding it every time the player crashes into something or gets shot out of the cannon completely changed the game. This effect is screen shake, which is literally just what it sounds like, which despite it seeming like such a small change, changed the game so dramatically that I immediately rushed to my notes and had to start typing this. I do think I have some bugs to fix though. It's the last day of the jam, but currently we are so far from done, and I really need to finish this game quickly. But if I submitted now, I would get laughed out of the competition, because look at this page. This forced me to spend the next few hours in Photoshop creating this thumbnail for the game. But if you thought the rest of this would be easy, it was not. I actually need to build and release the game, and while the PC version is easy enough, if I want to have any success in this competition, I'll need to get it to run in any browser. Do you want to know why this took hours? Well, each build took half 1 hour. I had to then zip the file up, upload it to the game page, play it, find a bug, repeat. I literally spent 8 hours doing this before I finally got it to work. I finally hit the submit button, competing against 6,000 other developers and 1,216 games, and I need to beat all of them. The results have come in after 5 days of brutal work, 30 hugely positive comments, and a game that broke itself more times than I broke my keyboard. We beat 5,838 other developers, placing 162nd out of 6,000 in the entertainment category. Not bad for a corporate murder simulator. If you want to see another time that I pushed myself to the absolute limit, check out this video where I remade and upgraded my first game in only 24 hours.